everyone, and welcome to Talking Over Tea. Today we're going to be talking about the first 4 chapters of The Magician's Nephew. This will be our first book series video, so we haven't quite figured out exactly how we're going to do everything yet, but we're excited to begin, and we hope you enjoy reading along with us or just watching and seeing what our thoughts are on this book.
The Magician's Nephew was written in 1955, and it is not the first to be written chronologically. When did he write it? He wrote The Magician's Nephew 6th in the series, so there was only The Last Battle after that one.
And yeah, we're gonna read them chronologically just because it makes much more sense with the story. And so yeah, should we do our chapter 1 summary?
Yes.
So, chapter 1, The Wrong Door. So in the first page, it says it was written during the time of Sherlock Holmes, and it's set in London.
The book starts with a girl named Polly Plummer who meets a boy named Diggory who has climbed over her garden wall, and he looks like he's been crying, and he tells her all about how he has had to move to London from the country and he hates London, and his dad's away in India and he's living with his aunt and uncle because his mom is very sick and she's about to die.
And he's telling her also about how he thinks his uncle has gone mad because his uncle has a study and he's never allowed in there, and his Aunt Letty is always trying to
keep him away. She's always trying to keep him away from the study.
And anytime Uncle Andrew says anything to Diggory, she shuts him up and doesn't let him say whatever he was going to say. And also, you can see he's kind of scared of Uncle Andrew having to sleep in that house and hearing him.
And so from then on, Polly and Diggory became friends, and it was a very wet summer, so they spent a lot of their time indoors exploring. So they explore the attic of the Longgrove houses, and they think that they will be able to get into the house next to them, which is empty.
But when they open the door, it actually leads to Uncle Andrew's study.
They don't know that this is Uncle Andrew's study, and they still think that they're in the abandoned house.
There's signs that someone's living there, so they're curious about that.
So they walk into there, and then
they see many things in the room, all these books, and there's a fire in the fireplace. But the first thing that Polly notices are some rings, and they're paired together yellow and green. And Diggory says, we should get out of here because someone's living in here. But Polly sees the rings and she wants to stay to know what they are.
And then Uncle Andrew comes in, and it says that he was 1,000 times more alarming than he'd ever looked. So Diggory is very scared of Uncle Andrew. And then Uncle Andrew turns and quickly locks them into his study, and they can't get out. And that is when Polly starts to get scared.
And the reason why he wants them is because he needs someone to test out something that he has discovered in these rings. And then he tries to
get them to stay, and they keep talking about how they have to get to dinner because they're all scared and they want to leave.
And he is saying he understands, and if they have to go, then he'll let them, but you can tell he really wants them to stay.
He says that he's going to give them a present before they leave.
And the present is one of those rings, and Polly already really wanted one, or was very interested in them.
So Uncle Andrew says that she can take any yellow ring, but not the green one.
And there's a humming noise coming from the rings, which doesn't understand.
She thinks that the rings were making the humming, and she's a little confused, but she really, really wants the ring.
And so she takes one.
And Diggory tells her not to take one, but Polly is starting to think that Diggory is all wrong, and that Uncle Andrew is actually nice and not mad.
And when she takes the ring, she disappears. And that's the end of chapter 1. And with these rings, I couldn't help but associate them to like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, because when you look at them you just really want one.
Yeah, you're drawn. Well, at least Polly was drawn to the rings. I'm not sure if Diggory really was.
It kind of seems, as we'll look later on, they're kind of drawn to different things, because later on Diggory lets himself kind of fall into this mat, like in chapter 4.
He lets himself be taken over.
Yeah.
He just does.
Like, what Diggory is affected by, Polly doesn't seem to be. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of opposite in that kind of way. And I feel like C.S. Lewis really set up the characters and the setting to be exactly what he needed. Because if the story had been about adults, they wouldn't have been as excited about what was behind that door.
Yeah, and they probably wouldn't have explored.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have explored, especially if the weather had been nice. They would have stayed outside. And so he set it up to be what he needed to write the story, and for it to make sense for why they're doing what they're doing.
And we kind of get the beginnings of who the characters are, especially with the 3 big main characters, Diggory and Polly and Uncle Andrew.
You kind of see what they're drawn to, or what their temptations are. Yeah. And you just kind of see maybe a foreshadow of how they're going to act later on.
So now we're going to go with chapter 2, which is called Diggory and His Uncle. So this starts right after what happened in chapter 1. Polly has just vanished. Okay, so it starts off with Diggory, and he has just screamed, and Uncle Andrew claps his hand over his mouth because he doesn't want anyone to hear.
So Diggory is very frightened and wondering where Polly went, and Uncle Andrew doesn't know, and he doesn't care about Polly, but he does want to know. He wants to know where she is. So he's explaining where these rings came from. So there was someone named Mrs. LaFay,
who was his godmother.
Yeah, and she gave him a box. She made him promise that he would burn it when she died, and he didn't keep that promise.
And then this is something interesting that Uncle Andrew says. So Diggory says that it was really rotten of Uncle Andrew not to keep his promise. And he says, "Men like me, who possess hidden wisdom, are freed from common rules, just as we are cut off from common pleasures."
So Uncle Andrew is saying, like, because he's so great, things like keeping your promises or telling the truth, that doesn't apply to him.
Yeah.
And Diggory thinks that him saying that is just, he thinks he can do anything, he likes to get anything he wants. So he's just kind of using whatever he thinks his greatness or whatever, he's using that as an excuse.
Yeah, to do whatever he wants.
He didn't open the box for a long time. He says that this box was older than any nation.
And that it was brought from another world when our world was only just beginning. And he has a very long explanation of all of this, but essentially he figures out a way to form the dust into a certain shape or object that would give it its magical powers. So he forms the dust into rings, and he discovers that, and he thinks that it will take you to the planet that it originally came from.
But of course he doesn't want to try it on himself, because that would be too risky.
So he buys guinea pigs and ties the rings to them, and they vanish, but the guinea pigs can't come back to tell him what has happened. So he's very excited when Polly and Diggory come into his study.
And he says, when Diggory shows concern for whatever he's sending to different places, he says, Uncle Andrew says, he's looking at it in the wrong point of view. A point of view that's actually caring about people. Yeah. He says it's wrong. And he says it's just a great experiment. So whatever the consequences are, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And he's gonna send people where he wouldn't even want to go himself.
Yeah, so he's exempt from all consequences, I guess. Or at least he thinks he is. So Diggory is very insistent on how to get Polly back, and Uncle Andrew tells him that Polly doesn't have a green ring, she only has a yellow ring, so she can't come back. She has to use a green ring to come back. So Diggory is going to have to take a yellow ring to the world and bring 2 green rings so that
they can come back if he finds Polly.
Yeah. There's a parallel between them because Diggory will sacrifice himself or sacrifice of himself to rescue his friend,
while Uncle Andrew will sacrifice others
for to get what he wants.
So then he takes the rings and he leaves too.
And that is the end of chapter 2. I'm just like, I don't actually know. Are you there? Are you there?
Okay.
Oh, but that wouldn't work. Okay. What are you?
Hello everyone, and welcome to Talking Over Tea. Cookie Jar TV.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Talking Over Tea.